Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Memorial 1?
Senate Memorial 1 by Senator Roberts, memorializing former Senator Hugh C. Fowler.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Memorial 1 and ask that it be read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Memorial 1 at length?
Senate Memorial 1 by Senator Roberts, memorializing former Senator Hugh C. Fowler. Whereas our respected former colleague, Hugh C. Fowler, a past member of the Colorado Senate, departed this life on October 25, 2023. And whereas Senator Fowler was born in Evanston, Illinois, and attended Evanston Township High School. And whereas after a year at the University of Wisconsin, where he entered the V-12 Navy College Training Program in 1943, Senator Fowler moved to Boulder via railroad in 1944 and enrolled at the University of Colorado Boulder, where he was a member of the Navy ROTC and obtained his bachelor's degree in business. And whereas in 1945, Senator Fowler was commissioned as an ensign from the Navy ROTC, served in Guam from 1945 to 1946, and in the South China Sea aboard the USS Bremerton from 1951 to 1954, and was honorably discharged as a lieutenant. And whereas in 1968, Senator Fowler ran for and was elected to the Colorado Senate, where he represented Arapahoe County from 1969 to 1980. And whereas during his time in the Senate, Senator Fowler served as the chair of the Senate Education Committee for 8 years, where he spearheaded legislation that aligned state policy with the federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and tirelessly advocated for a voucher system, alternate funding streams, and higher teacher salaries in public education. And whereas some of Senator Fowler's greatest legislative achievements include his first bill, which saved the 65-mile narrow-gauge Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad along the Colorado-New Mexico border from extinction, and his bill prohibiting smoking in public places. And whereas as a legislator, Senator Fowler was known for his honesty, intellect, and creativity, and as Bob Ewigan, a journalist for the Denver Post, said, Senator Fowler was gadfly, he was pest, he was point man, he was roadblock, but he was never conventional. He leaves his monument not in Colorado's law books, but in the minds of its people. And whereas Senator Fowler possessed a deep appreciation for the state Capitol building and championed its preservation through projects to restore the Senate and House chambers to their original design. And whereas Senator Fowler was a devout member of Cherry Creek Presbyterian Church in Englewood for 20 years, where he taught Sunday school and sang bass in the church choir. And whereas, aside from his legislative accomplishments, Senator Fowler was a successful business owner of Fowler and Moore and Company, a regent at large for the University of Colorado from 1983 to 1989, a presidential scholars commissioner, and the scoutmaster of Boy Scout Troop 344 in Littleton. And whereas Senator Fowler was preceded in death by his twin brother, F. Parker Fowler, Jr., in 2011. And whereas Senator Fowler is survived by his beloved wife of 74 years, Shirley, his daughter Lori, his son Chuck, 3 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado that in the death of Hugh C. Fowler, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the Colorado Senate, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this memorial be sent to Senator Fowler's wife, Shirley S. Fowler, his daughter, Lori Beckel, and son-in-law, John Crawford, his son, Chuck Fowler, and daughter-in-law, Linda Lee Fowler, his granddaughter, Emily Sheldon, and her husband, David Sheldon, his granddaughter, Yesa Bannock, and her husband, Nathan Bannock, his grandson, Nathan Beckel, and his wife, Aaliyah Haley, and his great-grandchildren, Maya Bannock, Lise Bannock, Luca Bannock, Maxwell Fowler Sheldon, Spencer Charles Sheldon, and Levi Hugh Sheldon.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. You can be seated. It is with great humility and respect that I am bringing forward Senate Memorial 1 today to honor Senator Hugh Fowler. As you heard in the memorial, Senator Fowler was quite the institution here in the state Senate and in the state Capitol building. Serving from 1969 to 1980 and representing Arapahoe County, Senator Fowler accomplished a great deal for our state during his time in this chamber. And as you heard, the very first bill in his career as a senator was an incredibly consequential one because it saved the 65-mile narrow-gauge Cumbre and Toltec Scenic Railroad, which is along the Colorado and New Mexico border. He saved it from extinction. And I know we're about to have a lot of discussion about rail during this legislative session, so I found that to be very timely in honor of Senator Fowler. Also, as you heard, Senator Fowler was a committed Republican and fought for ideals like school vouchers as chair of the Senate Education Committee, but he also advocated for higher teacher pay and students with disabilities. And so you're probably asking, why am I sponsoring this resolution? I, of course, don't represent Arapahoe County like he did. But I'm honored to bring this memorial at the request of Senator Fowler's daughter, Lori, who's with us today. Lori is a constituent of mine, a good friend, a dear friend, and also the chair of the Clear Creek County Democrats. So it's fair to say that her and her dad differed on politics sometimes in his later years. But once I was elected to the Senate here in 2022, Lori introduced me to her father, Hugh. And we were able to correspond a bit during his final year last year. Senator Fowler shared with me ideas for bills that I should work on. He's a big supporter of more safety on I-70 with commercial vehicles, by the way. But he also, in his emails, shared with me the love that he had for this building, the state capitol building. He told me that he was the chair of the Capitol Building Advisory Committee, where he helped lead a total renovation of the state capitol in the 1970s. He was also key in creating the museum upstairs, Mr. Brown's Attic. And in one of his last emails with me, he shared this story. He said, "On my second day in the Senate, I intercepted Don, our sergeant at arms, tossing beautiful yellow oak swivel chairs from the chamber into a dump truck headed for oblivion. I asked him to throw one in my station wagon, and it sat in our Littleton basement for 35 years before I installed it in Mr. Brown's attic, with a couple of items of contemporary time with the desk, a chair, a blotter holder, a stamp licker. And over the years, he's collected more items, including a stapler, a number punch, and a heavy-duty cancellation punch, all well before the turn of the 19th century. He said, I'm putting these treasures in a bag for Lori to deliver to you. Only ask them that you add them to Mr. Brown's desk up top." And I did bring one of those items today, and I'll have these on my desk if you want to come check it out. This is literally from 1897, and apparently was used here in the state Senate. When Lori came to visit me that day during last session, she was sitting over there where she is now, and I just happened to, at the time we were debating bills, pull out in my desk the little card that says who sat in your desk before you. And without knowing, and certainly not on purpose, in my desk, number 34 over there, was the desk of Hugh Fowler. And I found that to be very special and very much a small world. So thank you, Lori, for introducing me to your dad, and thank you to the whole family for his service. This state is certainly better off because of his service, the country as well. And so with that, I would love to introduce the family members that we have here, and then we'll invite some other folks to speak. But first, you heard that we have Shirley Fowler, Hugh's wife of 74 years, and Shirley was a former Senate enrolling clerk here in the state Senate. And she's joining us. We have, yes, welcome back to the state Senate. We have Lori and her husband, John. We have Hugh, Senator Fowler's son, Chuck Fowler, and his wife, Linda. We have Senator Fowler's granddaughter, Emily. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome back to the Senate, and thank you for Senator Fowler. Thank you, colleagues.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President and members, colleagues, guests. I am honored and privileged to co-sponsor this resolution this morning with my colleague from Frisco. It is interesting that both he and I have our connection to Senator Fowler through his children, Chuck Fowler and his wife Linda are constituents of mine, and Chuck is a committed El Paso County Republican senator. So that speaks highly of Senator Fowler, that his children are active in their communities and know they're senators. As I got to know Senator Fowler through his work in the preservation of this building, I also came to know him as a man, as a former legislator, as a human being, and how much he loved this institution. Take a moment, if you don't take a moment, I try to from time to look around this chamber, and if you've been here very long, you know that this chamber had asbestos board and all of that around this beautiful, beautiful work. And it represents what you see today, the work of so many people, but Senator Fowler was one of those people. And his love for this institution is reflected in the surroundings and in the way that he dealt with people. Now, I want to read to you some words from the resolution again, in case you missed them. They go by fast, and you'll understand why I had a special affinity for Senator Fowler. Bob Ewigan, a journalist that some of you have been around a long time will know that name, said about Senator Fowler that he was a gadfly, he was a pest, he was a point man, he was a roadblock, but he was never conventional. And he sat back there in that seat and was all of those things, and at the same time, a true gentleman of everything that we aspire to be as senators and ought to be. As I participate in these memorials from time to time, I take time to look at the pictures, the beginning and the end, and the names there of people that have gone before us and have made Colorado what it is today. It is our responsibility to carry that on, and it is their inspiration, that of Senator Hugh Fowler, to me, to be a gadfly, a roadblock, unconventional, but always, always aspire to the civility and courtesy and the best of this institution and its surroundings. Thank you, and to the family, thank you for your sacrifice as he served us here in the state of Colorado.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Senate Rule 31A for the purpose of allowing current and former members of the House to address the Senate from the well to consider this memorial.
Members, this does take a 2/3 vote. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. The Senate will now stand in recess to hear remarks from members of the House and former members of the Senate. Members, welcome back to the Senate chamber. If you'd like to speak, please make your way to the well. Senator Blickensderfer.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you heard in the resolution, Hugh Fowler had the persona of a politician sort of figured out. Likely he slapped a lot of backs, squeezed a lot of palms, and I bet Shirley can attest to him kissing a few babies here and there. Gadfly? You bet. Guilty as charged. But I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the business side of Hugh Fowler. And oh my Lord, did he have a business side. In January of 1999, Hugh wandered into my office over yonder and tossed a stack of papers in front of me. Mother of God, Hugh, what are you thinking? A monorail? Hell yes, he proclaimed. Right straight into the mountains along I-70, veering off toward the Ziffelberger cabin, under Loveland Pass, and into Summit County, blah, blah, Vale Pass, blah, blah, into Eagle. Come on, Blick. Transportation is in a stranglehold, and the ski traffic grows and grows. All I want to do is a study, and I'm only asking for $50 million. I sighed, thinking of our Western Slope constituency, and I sighed again. Okay, Hugh, take the ball and run with it. I won't be much help. I've got my hands full keeping our caucus from killing each other. Go get your votes. So we went our ways with an occasional, how are we doing in the lobby? I had little clue of its progress. We took it to committee, and I was convinced everybody just wanted to play nice with the majority leader. Anyhow, it passed. But when we got to the floor, I had my doubts. How many Republicans really wanted this? And how many Democrats would relish the chance to embarrass the majority leader? I walked onto the stage without a script and went to battle, mostly with my own party. We argued, ranted, and raved. I can't even remember the voice vote, but on committee of the whole, 18 votes appeared out of nowhere. And those 18 held to third reading. Hugh had delivered 17 votes, and I provided the 18th. Over time, I've bragged that I was the only person who got a monorail through the state Senate. But no, it wasn't me. It was Senator Hugh Fowler. Thank you.
Representative Hudson.
I was a member of the larger, not lesser, chamber across the way. I got to know Hugh in the period between 1979 and 83. He was a gentleman, a veteran, a patriot, and he was a twin, as was I. And we began to work together because we both had two interests. One is accountability in public education, and the other was transportation and transit. And Hugh had been a naval officer in World War II, as they indicated earlier in the ROTC program at Boulder. My father, who was only a year older, had been a 90-day wonder and a naval officer in the South Pacific also. But I lost him early, so I kind of let Hugh be my substitute dad. And at the end of my freshman year, if you ever go back, and you'll see it always identified me as Maverick Democrat, Miller Hudson. I quit my caucus and said that I wouldn't return until we had new leadership. And I didn't consult with Hugh before I did that. And I went to him and I says, what should I do next? And he said, well, if you're going to rock the boat, don't do it to watch the waves flip the damn thing over. And a year later, we had a new minority leader, Federico Pena, who we are all familiar with. During that freshman year, he took all of the legislators that wanted to go by bus down to San Luis, and we rode the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad. And it was a wonderful event. I imagine today we would be hauled before the Ethics Commission on that because we didn't have to pay for our tickets. But in any event, Hugh and I were talking to the engineer, and if you've ever taken the trip, the two trains at noontime meet at the top of the pass, and we had to move from one train to the other so we could get back down to San Luis. And suddenly people were yelling at Hugh and I because our train was departing and we were chasing it. His interest in transit came from growing up in Chicago, riding the elevated, the L. He told me a great story about coming back from the Second World War and deciding he would surprise his mother. So he rode the L out, he came to the door, and she said, "Parker, I didn't expect you." They were identical twins, and he was like 40 pounds lighter than the last time she'd seen him. So anyway, he was an entrepreneur. He took me to his touchless car wash. He took me to the Cherry Creek Academy, which is a charter school and a place that has done a wonderful job of educating thousands of kids, of which he can be very proud. I'll tell one other story in closing. When Hugh was turning 90, what would that have been, about 7, 8 years ago, he said to me, he said, "You know, Miller," he says, "when you get to be my age, every day is a gift." He says, "You wake up and you say, 'Damn, I must still be here.'" He said, "Then you have to decide, oh, I guess it's time to get up." So I will miss him very much. He may have come from Illinois, but he had adopted a Western ethic. Don't brag, tell the truth, keep your word. I'll miss him.
President Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Representative Hudson. I'm John Andrews. I had the honor to serve in this body from the end of 1998 until the beginning of 2005. I came to Colorado about age 30 from a job in Washington, D.C. in the glamorous confines, although very much in the basement thereof, at the White House. So I ended up knowing a lot more about Congress than I did about a state legislature. I ended up being able to say, yeah, I've met U.S. senators, but I had never met a state senator. What is a state senator? I didn't really know. Someone told me I should get acquainted at the Arapahoe County Republican Breakfast Club, which is still going the first Wednesday morning of every month, and it's been kind of my political nursery and home base in Colorado for all these years. And one of the first people that I met was State Senator Hugh Fowler. I well remember him giving basics of how to address a group and get your points across to those of us that were just learning our way around at that Republican breakfast meeting. One thing he said is, when you get to your feet, gentlemen, button your jacket, look them in the eye, Mr. Majority Leader, tell them what you have to say. Be direct, be brief, be finished. Hugh Fowler was my ideal of a state senator. You know, Mark Twain said, the difference between the right word and almost the right word is the difference between lightning and lightning bug. If Hugh Fowler is the state senator, then I look at what I was able to do in my tenure in this body, and I say, well, maybe I made it to lightning bug, but by knowing Hugh Fowler, I knew the real lightning. He always took the responsibilities very seriously. He never took himself very seriously. There was always that twinkle in the eye, wasn't there, Representative Hudson, Senator Blickensderfer? By the way, Tom Blickensderfer, I have to apologize that I'm afraid I was not one of your 18 votes that got the monorail through the Senate. You were my majority leader, but you couldn't always bring us all along. I apologize posthumously to my dear friend, Hugh Fowler. He took himself never seriously. That gleam in the eye, that joie de vivre, that contagious joy, that even at 97, it was still there. It will live forever in our hearts. His memory will live forever in this chamber and in this Capitol. Thank you very much.
Thank you, members, so much for being here with us back in the Senate. The Senate will come back to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion for the adoption of Senate Memorial 1 and request a roll call vote.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Memorial 1. Will the clerk please poll the members?
Senators Baisley. Baisley, aye. Bridges. Bridges, aye. Buckner. Buckner, aye. Coleman. Coleman, aye. Cutter. Cutter, aye. Danielson. Danielson, aye. Exum. Exum, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Janal. Janal, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Hanson. Hanson, aye. Henriksen. Henriksen, aye. Hawkes Lewis. Hawkes Lewis, aye. Kirkmeyer. Kirkmeyer, aye. Kolker. Kolker, aye. Liston. Liston, aye. Lundin. Lundin, aye. Marchman. Marchman, aye. Michelson Janae. Michelson Janae, aye. Malika. Malika, aye. Pelton B. Pelton B, aye. Pelton R. Pelton R, aye. Priola. Priola, aye. Rich. Rich, aye. Roberts.
Aye.
Roberts, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, aye. Simpson. Simpson, aye. Smallwood. Smallwood, aye. Sullivan. Sullivan, aye. Van Winkle. Van Winkle, aye. Will. Will, aye. Winter. Winter, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Senator Tom Blickensderfer. Blickensderfer, aye. President John Andrews. President Andrews, aye. Mr. President.
Aye.
Mr. President, aye.
With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Memorial 1 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. The Senate will now observe a moment of silence, and the chimes will be rung in memory of Senator Hugh C. Fowler. To Hugh's colleagues and family, thank you so much for being here with us and letting us be a small part of the celebration of his life and legacy in the state of Colorado. The Senate will now stand in a brief recess to greet our guests.